Hi, I'm Jeff Haynes, editor at TechBargains, and today we're bringing you a video review of the HP dm1z laptop. Now when you think about most laptops, a children's story isn't typically what first comes to mind. You frequently think about things like the strength of the system specs or how fast the processor happens to be, among other features. However, when we were thinking about it, we really couldn't help but see the dm1z as the little engine that could, because thanks to the Fusion chip, this hybrid laptop showcased massive power and performance in a very small package. The HP dm1z is powered by the AMD Fusion E350 Accelerated Processor Unit, or APU. This is a new processor that melds a dual-core 1.6 GHz CPU with an AMD Radeon HD 6310 GPU. These chips were specifically designed to provide lots of power, striking visuals, and solid computing, while also delivering longer battery life to smaller systems. The Fusion chip also powered an 11.6-inch BrightView LED display that had a native resolution of 1366 by 768. Rounding out some of the other specs for the dm1z were 2 GB of DDR3 RAM, as well as a 250 GB hard drive that spun at 7200 RPM, and an optional external Super Multi-DVD burner, which was designed to reduce the overall weight of the laptop. All of this was packed into a machine that is 11.4 inches long, 8.4 inches wide, and only 0.8 inches thick. Now, we knew that the Fusion chips were receiving a lot of praise for their design, but we didn't know how well the processors would perform, especially in a system that only packed a limited amount of RAM. Fortunately, the dm1z did not disappoint at all. Even while we were running full system antivirus scans, downloading multiple files, web browsing with several windows open, and playing 2 HD streams, the only problem we noticed is a mild amount of frames being dropped on one of those streams, even though the system was obviously under full load. The same performance could be found with HD video playback, as well as games that are notorious for taxing systems. Considering that these titles ran with little to no adjustments at all with only minimal RAM, the dm1z was very impressive. Another thing that struck us was just how cool and quiet the machine was during use. One of the big issues with many laptops is that they can pump out a ton of heat, which can make holding the system very uncomfortable. Smaller systems can sometimes be a big culprit of this problem because of the closely packed components to make sure that it keeps the size of the machine down. The dm1z remained at a pleasant temperature even while we kept the machine under stress for prolonged periods of time. We credited this to the HP CoolSense technology that actively channeled heat away from the system through its vents. But it also wasn't noisy either. In fact, we only heard the fan kick on once after 7 straight hours of use. Clearly, with such a small system, the screen will definitely get a lot of scrutiny. However, the 11.6-inch screen managed to distinguish itself, whether we ran streamed content or DVDs thanks to the external drive. All of the visual content that we experienced looked sharp and had virtually no artifacts at all. While some color saturation in some movie scenes could produce visual noise here and there, it wasn't enough to detract from the overall experience. This was also enhanced by the Altic Lansing speakers that were much better than we expected from such a tiny system. These speakers, enhanced by Dolby Advanced Audio certification, really highlighted dialogue in games and movies, as well as vocals in songs without coming across as tinny or thin. While the bass for some songs or rumble and some explosions from movies were hit and miss, overall the speakers were solid. Surprisingly for us, even though we usually hate pre-installed user experience programs, we actually found ourselves liking the HP Media Feature software, which allowed us to really take advantage of any media on the system. Whether it was launching the MediaSmart DVD player, which was incredibly detailed in its movie playback information, or searching for music files through the music player, or even launching any of the other features thanks to the included toolbar, we were struck at how well that suite worked. All of this was packed into a system that held decent battery life. While the dm1z never got close to the 9.5 hours that we were promised from HP, it did frequently last around 4.5 hours before it required a charge. We found this could vary depending upon how much of the external drive was used, but for the most part, this is still a good amount of life for the battery. Unfortunately, the battery was also deceptive when it came to reporting remaining battery life. The system vacillated wildly from minute to minute. The only way we had a sense of how long the battery lasted was with an external stopwatch, which becomes frustrating as you may feel the need to constantly be near an outlet because you don't know how much power you really have left. This wasn't the only issue that we had with the dm1z. While we liked video playback on the glossy screen, it had a very narrow viewing window that pretty much required you to be head-on to really take advantage of it. Otherwise, you get a lot of color and contrast shifting that was rather harsh. Additionally, while HP advertises that the dm1z can handle 1080p playback, we found that the performance was rather lacking. Frames were frequently dropped regardless of what was playing, even if it was the only thing that was running on the system at that time. We also had two minor issues we noticed while working on the system, which stood out to us as a bit odd. For one thing, while we like the responsiveness of the keyboard, the dm1z isn't a fully complete keyboard itself, as it's missing the page up, page down, home, and end keys. We use those buttons frequently, especially because we write on a daily basis, and having to adjust to use without those buttons was definitely strange. Additionally, we noticed that while the dm1z is listed at about 3.5 pounds, it seems like it weighs a lot more, which feels attributed to the compact nature of the laptop. The system feels very dense and heavy, and considering that the DVD drive was made as an external attachment to reduce the weight, it doesn't seem like you really feel a noticeable difference. It's been said that good things come in small packages, and the HP dm1z backs this expression nicely. The system has excellent performance thanks to the Fusion APU, solid sound and video playback of media, and it can run for hours without becoming excessively noisy or overheated. While we do wish that the battery reporting was a little bit more accurate, the screen angles were better, and that it could support 1080p as advertised, we still found overall that this was an excellent value, especially because it starts at the very low price of $450. For these reasons, we decided to give the HP dm1z laptop a 4 out of 5. For more reviews of the newest products, as well as the latest coupons and deals on systems like the HP dm1z, be sure to check out TechBargains.com.